ready for this?
Catholic Central High, a school built on rich traditions, blessed with a glorious history of academic excellence and athletic prowess. Throughout the years, the football team at Fields represents the spirit and pride of its student body, and the games they play a celebration of the school's uniqueness. In 1950, the London Catholic high schools, consisting of the private boys' school of De La Salle, the girls' school of St. Angela's, and the commercial school of Sacred Heart, were amalgamated to form Catholic Central High School. The boys' school of De La Salle had been a football power amongst Wassa B schools, having won titles as far back as 1924. With the creation of CC High, this winning football tradition continued. In 1945, De La Salle hired a young RCAF World War II veteran to be a physical education teacher and an Air Cadets drill instructor. Fred Kennedy also became an assistant coach to both Brother Raymond and Brother Martin on the school's rugby teams. By 1950, Kennedy was the head coach, and the newly formed Catholic Central was finally allowed to join the London District Conference, competing amongst the Wassa A schools, making Friday night football games religious wars at Labatt's Park.
Fred was very intense, and Fred told me at times, you know, he hated to lose. And of course, I'm sure every coach does that, but Fred seemed to have a, be even more so. Fred didn't want to lose.
He was a driven coach, driven to win. He was a highly motivational coach. In terms of the actual science of the game, although he was innovative, he was a very good copycat. And the year that we were so successful in senior for the first time, he had literally taken the Edmonton Eskimos racehorse football scheme and brought it to Catholic Central.
He made everybody feel really comfortable. We only had about 30 or 32 guys on the team, but he expected a lot from you, but you knew that going in, and he worked you very, very hard. He was fair, though. He was very fair, and he made sure that you gave your best effort at all times. He was very intense, as everyone knows.
Being the only Catholic high school in the city, the so-called Micks and Dogans were bound together by a spirit and a sense of community where everyone rallied around the success of the football team. The early 50s saw some great individual performances by outstanding athletes. Dwayne Thomas, Frank Loftus, Joe Murphy, Al Gleason, Larry Mellon, Norm Phillipson, and Bill Keenapple were all named City All-Stars in an era where players played on both sides of the ball and the helmets were leather and face masks were non-existent. During this period, there was one individual who perhaps best represents the teams of the early 50s, a running back named Bill Britton.
The one that I guess I had a real feeling for Bill Britton because I felt he was my type of player, a real tough guy, you know. I mean, tough in the sense that he didn't stand for any nonsense, even from his own teammates. And I know when he went on to Western, they used to say that Bill used to get into scraps with his own players because he just didn't guys either fooling around or guys that did something he didn't like. And then Bill went on to play professional football. And I would say Bill Britton was probably, you know, just an outstanding.
In 1956, Catholic Central had its first championship football team, not in the City of London, but rather as Ontario provincial champions. During the 56 season, Catholic Central was chosen to represent Western Ontario in the Red Feather Tournament of Champions in Toronto. The tournament was a 2-day affair with 8 teams representing 8 regions of Ontario in a 4-game tournament. Teams were judged on their ability to play football, deportment on the field, on the bench, and in the locker room. They were competing for 2 awards, the United Appeal Torch Trophy as the best team and the Golden Rule Award as the most sportsmanlike team. Sent off with great fanfare, the hopes of the Crusaders rest on the backfield of quarterback Pete McGinney, fullback Pete Howard, and backs Mike Garnsby, Omer Savard, Larry Hurl, Bernie Mockler, and Ron Lasky. Their opponent on the Friday night was Central Ontario representative Niagara Falls. The game was played in C&E Stadium before 13,000 excited fans as high school football was enjoying great interest and support across the province. In a dazzling performance, the Crusaders dominated the Niagara Falls team in an awesome display of ball control, with a convincing 36-1 victory led by Pete Howard's 2 touchdowns and 6 converts. The Crusaders awed the gridiron judges. After the Saturday games, it was obvious to all which team was the best in the province. CCH was awarded both the United Appeal Torch Trophy and the Golden Rule Award as the most talented and sportsmanlike team in the tournament. When the team arrived home at the C&R Tournament in London, over 300 parents and students were waiting to congratulate them. As reported by the London Free Press, no Crusader back from the ancient wars ever received a more tumultuous welcome. Parents, girlfriends, and classmates joined in with fight Crusaders, fight for victory." Noisemakers exploding, balloons and cheers of blue and white echoed for the players. A parade of cars bearing the teams and Myers traveled Dundas Street to Colborne to Catholic Central, where the boys were officially congratulated as provincial champions. With great expectations for the 57 season, the playoffs were cancelled due to an influenza epidemic in the City of London. Therefore, a 3-way tie for the city championship was declared, and arch-rival Central was chosen to represent London in the WASA Championships. It wouldn't be until 1958 that Catholic Central would capture its first outright crown.
A strange season. We started out, we had a very fast team, and that was the first year of racehorse football for Fred. We started out playing St. Thomas and beat them 77-0 with 5-point touchdowns. It was almost an embarrassing situation. We had so much speed. And that was the year when I don't think the word defense was ever mentioned. Fred just put in new play after new play that would emphasize speed and outside running. And of course, Pete Howard was the quarterback. Peter could put the ball in your stomach, and whether you wanted to grab it or not, he was strong enough to pull it out. So faking took on a new art form at that time. Peter also was large. He could put the ball on his hip, and nobody would know it was there. He'd suddenly fake an off-tackle play, which happened to be our strongest play, take a step back, and throw a little lob pass downfield. You had the element of an extremely fast team with a quarterback that was just outstanding at the time.
In the defeat of the Medway Cowboys 46-28 with a 4-touchdown performance by fullback John Gardner, CCH had the 1958 championship. Beginning in 1948, the London Conference champions had played the Windsor City champions in the Purple Bowl at J.W. Little Stadium to decide the WASA championship. In 1958, in what was to be the last Purple Bowl ever played, the undefeated Catholic Central Crusaders met the Windsor Kennedy Clippers to decide the WASA AA championship. In a game which would be forever remembered as the Mud Bowl, Catholic Central used their go-go offense to rush for 456 yards in a 27-13 defeat of Windsor Kennedy, where both teams were almost indistinguishable from the mud. The ball-handling tactics of the Crusader backfield, one of the best ever compiled, completed its perfect season. Led by quarterback Pete Howard and running backs John Nash, Bernie Mockler, John Gardner, and Jack Phillipson, the Crusaders firmly established its reputation for excellence not only in the city of London but across the province. While Fred Kennedy ran a one-man show on a shoestring budget, scrambling for equipment and sweaters, players practiced on a cinder field, dressed in a cramped change room, and shared 2 shower stalls amongst the entire team. Despite the limitations, a winning commitment was developed as players came up through the Altar Boy League, to the juniors, and eventually to the senior football team. On the sideline were the parents and fans who shared in the commitment and the family atmosphere that surrounded the team. 1958 was a banner year, a junior-senior conference sweep for the first time, a conference scoring record, an undefeated 8-0 season, and the WASA Purple Bowl championship. The continuation of Catholic Central's winning ways carried into 1959 when they defeated Beck Collegiate 29-0 at Labatt Park to capture its second consecutive conference title and complete its second consecutive undefeated season. Once again, field conditions were atrocious. Ankle-deep mud and large-sized puddles were everywhere, as players on both sides were indiscernible. But once again, the Crusader faithful were out in full force to cheer on its team, as Catholic Central proved every bit as effective in the mud as they were on a dry field. Another familiar sight on the field was the presence of Crusader quarterback Pete Howard, now in his 4th senior season. At 6'4" and 230 pounds, Howard was a physically dominating presence, who was the focal point for the powerful run game and kept opposing defenses on their toes with his passing abilities. In his final high school game, Howard was tremendous, scoring a touchdown and directing 3 touchdown marches, booting all 4 converts and kicking a single. At the conclusion of the 1959 season, he was chosen as the best quarterback in the province and awarded a college scholarship. But in what was a totally unprecedented move, Howard jumped directly from the Catholic Central backfield to the CFL when he signed with the Hamilton Tiger Cats for the 1960 season. Howard was remembered fondly by sports reporter Bob Gage.
Pete was a very dominating player and a very, he's such a big chap. He really, sometimes you wondered at a player that size being able to quarterback. He looked more like a lineman or a fullback. But Pete had great hands and was very deft at handing the ball off and with the people he had and passing. He was a thorough athlete, a very fine basketball player as well. And in fact, Pete later went on to play pro football with Hamilton Tiger Cats. But also Pete, prior to that, was picked on the All-Ontario High School team, and certainly an award that he was well deserved. Pete wasn't the fastest person in the world, but he was a very tricky person, and certainly led those Catholic Central teams, and was really the top figure on the team at that time.
Despite great players and outstanding teams, the 1960s saw a decade of frustration in attempting to recapture the Alex Austrioloni Trophy. Beginning with losses to Beck in the finals in both 1960 and 61, it was another 11 years before a CCH team reached the city finals. Backs such as Bill Payne, Jerry Mahoney, Don Collins, Reg York, Joe Moselt, Ted O'Leary, Pat O'Brien, Bill McTeer, Tim Walzak, Mike Tucker, Tony Wilson, and Peter Quigley all wore the blue and white, but were all unsuccessful in claiming a city title for CCH in the 1960s. The conference itself saw a great change during this decade. The league expanded to 13 teams. Night football ended in 1964 after using Labatt's Park for over 20 years. The conference saw the rise of platoon football, assistant coaches, and special teams. Leather helmets were no more. replaced by suspension helmets and tooth protectors. In 1967, the league split into East and West divisions as high school football in London took on a new look. Looking back, the 1968 season would probably best epitomize the frustration of CCH football in the decade of the 60s.
Driving late in the game, and the quarterback threw a pass. Can't tell you names or numbers, it's kind of a blur, but the receiver touched the ball at the 3-yard line and it flipped out of his hands, and another Oak Ridge guy caught it in the end zone. The referee signaled a touchdown, and we ended up losing that game on that day by 1 point. They kicked the convert after that. Mr. Ken came back and told us not to worry, that he felt the official had made a bad call, brought it to his attention that he was probably going to protest, and followed the proper procedures and did so. The ruling was that yes, it should have just been a first down at the 3-yard line, that the touchdown shouldn't have scored, and anything that happened after that should be replayed. So they brought us back, I believe it was a Monday, to replay the last 7-8 minutes of the game. I think it was their first down at the 3-yard line. Well, we held them until 3rd down. We played 3-down football back then, and they finally scored, but we blocked the convert, as I remember, and so the game was tied. We played 2 8-minute quarters, 2 more 8-minute quarters, 2 more 8-minute quarters, and then it got dark, and then they said, we can't play anymore. So we just said, what happens now? And they said, we'll make a ruling. Well, they brought us back on the Wednesday after school and said, well, pick it up again in overtime. So we played 2 more 8-minute quarters and 2 more 8-minute quarters, and it seemed like forever, and it was getting dark again, and they finally, the referees brought us together and said, we'll play 2 more 8-minute quarters, and unless somebody scores and breaks the tie, both teams are going to lose, because there's a playoff game on Friday, and we were only 2 days away. We had beaten each other up pretty good. It turned out that with very little time, less than a minute left on the clock, I believe it was Dave West from Oak Ridge punted a single, punted the ball into the end zone, and it was mucky and water and puddles and everything like that, and the ball was dropped by our guy and into the puddle. He got knocked over. I remember picking it up and getting a block or two and being outside the end zone and headed down the sideline when the whistles were blowing, and they said he was down in the end zone. He didn't even have the ball. I think they lost sight of it. We didn't lose that game, but we had it taken away from us.
The new decade of the 70s brought the end of an era in high school sports in London. After 28 years, Fred Kennedy decided that it was time to step down as the head coach of the Crusader football team. Asked why he was retiring, Mr. Ken replied, "I don't know. A lot of people ask me that. There certainly was no pressure from my family. It's not for health reasons, and I still love the game. There's nothing more I enjoy than teaching football players. I still enjoy teaching after all these years. I guess I just love kids." After a 13-year drought, the pressure of having Mr. Ken go out a winner was placed on the shoulders of the young 72 team. This squad did not disappoint. They reached the city finals, meeting the tough Lucas Vikings. In what was a fitting last game, the field conditions were that of a mud bath, typical of all Kennedy's great championships. A victory would not be easy. 2 days before the final, starting quarterback Rob Lyons was lost due to appendicitis, forcing Paul Boucher into the starting role. Minutes into the game, they lost co-captain Mike Cercelli to a shoulder injury, and then they had a first-quarter touchdown called back. But it was to be destiny. They would send Mr. Ken out a winner. The young backfield of Joe Rhea, Bob Maniego, and Pete Regan rushed for a combined 288 yards in a game where Kennedy did not call a single pass. In the end, Catholic Central defeated Lucas 13-8, closing out a legendary coaching career while proving Kennedy's philosophy that a football team is divided into 35 equal parts with everybody contributing, the secret being cooperation and honesty in his players. The end of Fred Kennedy's coaching career was the beginning of many football traditions still honored at Catholic Central. Today, the senior team still attends morning mass and wears dress ties to class on all game days, playing on the field with a pride and respect that the blue and white sweater has come to symbolize. The 1972 team was successful in delivering Fred Kennedy his 4th senior title and honoring the man whose dedication and love for the school reflected in the success of his many, many teams. Not only do these traditions apply to the players on the field, but also the fans, cheerleaders, and spectators on the sidelines. When Catholic Central was a private school and the students had to pay tuition to attend, Each individual student had a sense of ownership in the school that lent to a real community atmosphere, many students holding down part-time jobs in order to pay their way to CCH. Pep rallies and football games were the focal point for social events as the whole student body attended games. It was common practice to let the students out early for football games, as long lines of yellow school buses were filled to capacity and made their way across the city to invade the imposing school's football field. The United Way Spirit Trophy, awarded to the school with the most spirit in ticket sales at the Red Feather football tournament, was retired due to Catholic Central's absolute domination. The United Way game became the ultimate football festival where every student played an important role in the school's quest to exhibit its dynamic spirit to the City of London. The word spirit became the key word in defining what Catholic Central stood for.
Particularly the United Way games, but every home game, every Thursday or Friday, whenever we played, it was just a carnival atmosphere. The school always got out. When school got out for football games, we used to stand them 6 deep all around the end zones and everything like that, as I remember, and tremendous Spirit Week contests. We used to try and arrange those against Central, usually the arch rival, and but we'd get 1,000 people to our games all the time, and there was only 1,000 kids in the school. There were 900 kids in the school. A lot of parents would come out and watch. It was really a great day. We had a lot of fun. Everybody wanted to be at the game because that was the place to be. When it came to the United Way games up at Western, CCH they retired the Spirit Trophy because we'd always sell 1,600 or 1,700 tickets to 900 or 1,000 fans, and nobody could match us. So my recollection is that we won the Spirit Trophy, 20 years in a row or 15 years in a row, and it was just terrific. Spirit was great, pep rallies were wonderful, and just a great sense of camaraderie in the football program and in harmony with the rest of the school.
Catholic Central had become a school held together by families, brothers and sisters, the Howards, the Phillipsons, the Leggs, the Rias, the Regans, all becoming one family, a school of generations where sons and daughters followed in their parents' footsteps and shared in the same experiences that Catholic Central offered. The long history of student councils at CCH became the facilitators for the school's spirit. The Girls and Boys Athletic Association and the school Key Club orchestrated the many sporting events that helped draw the school together. As student council members inspired the students to become involved in the extracurricular extravaganza that CCH is so famous for. As the only Catholic high school in the City of London, Catholic Central's community drew strength from the solidarity that this unique building on Colborne and Dundas represented. Every game against CCH was a special event. Great rivalries grew within the conference. The proximity of Central and its football coach Bill Trout led to a natural rivalry. Beck's talented teams, coached by Will Rice, made the confrontations with Kennedy's Crusaders memorable matchups. But these good-spirited competitions were not restricted to only the players on the field. In the 1970s, the games against the Oak Ridge Oaks became classic confrontations, not necessarily for what happened during the games, but rather at halftime when the CCH fans rushed on the field in order to win the tug-of-war contest against the Oak Ridge fans. After 6 years of losing both on its home field and away, Oak Ridge conceded the contest, and yet another trophy was retired to CCH.
Come on over, baby, whole lot of shaking going on. Yes, I say come on over, baby, baby, you can't go wrong. We ain't faking, whole lot of shaking going on. Well, I say come on over, baby, we got chicken in the corner. Woo, huh? Come on over, baby, where they
Traditions are a part of Catholic Central's mystique and lore. One such tradition is a humble and articulate oblate priest named William Thompson, better known as Father T. A history teacher and school chaplain, Father T began taking pictures of student and school events in 1974. During the past 20 years, he has documented the school's vibrant social history and exhibited it in his classroom. Father T's portable became a lunch hour gathering place for many students to look at the numerous photos plastered on his bulletin boards. Over the years, he has become a mentor and friend to thousands of students who have walked the hallways of CCH. Always celebrating Mass for the football team, his presence as a photographer, along with the personal interest he develops with the student athletes, makes him an integral part of each football team. His home is always open to any who visit, as is his classroom to any seeking advice. Throughout the years, he has performed numerous marriages for ex-students, baptized many of their children, as well as buried many of their loved ones. The photos of the past 20 years have served as a pictorial mission and a reminder of the histories and the traditions that Catholic Central possesses. After the 1972 city championship, Catholic Central suffered its longest drought between city titles, a span of 15 years, recording only one appearance in the city championship game during this time period, a 47-0 drubbing at the hands of the Laurier Rams in 1978. After the retirement of Fred Kennedy, the coaching responsibilities were handed down to several former players of Kennedy. Throughout his career, Fred had many ex-players go on to become excellent football coaches in the conference and around the province. Bob Pierce, Bill Dunlop, Frank Loftus, Al Gleason, Bill McTeer, John Darnell, Terry Walzak, and John Milne, to name a few. Immediately after his retirement, former co-captain and quarterback Joe Moselt became head coach of the Senior Crusaders after guiding the junior team to a city championship title. Following Moselt was Tim McDonald, who would later win several junior championships. Taking over from McDonald was Pat O'Brien, a co-captain in the 60s who would later make his mark in federal politics. Succeeding O'Brien was Mike Tucker, a former co-captain and recipient of the Fred Kennedy Trophy as the team MVP in 1970. In 1987, under the guidance of Mike Cercelli, former co-captain of the 72 team, that the Senior Crusaders recaptured the conference title. A team inspired by the 15-year drought in the program, its goal was to re-establish Crusader football as a dominant force in the city. The sign posted in the locker room simply stated, "It's our time," as the 87 team went on to post a perfect 9-0 season, dethroning the Laurier Rams, who had dominated the conference for years. In the city final, which had twice been canceled due to heavy snowfall and eventually had its venue switched from J.W. Little Memorial Stadium to Robarts Field, the team played a flawless game in defeating Laurier 16-7. Running back Matt Dickey was chosen co-game MVP, along with a rare selection of an offensive lineman, center Craig Van Dam, who simply hit everything in sight that day. This team was blessed with a mixture of speed and power. Receivers Russ Cooper and Steve Papp, along with backs Brad Brennan and P.J. Gleason, led the team to a storybook season. The city championship rekindled the spark and interest of football at CCH, as leather jackets bearing the words Crusader Football began to populate the streets of London. One of the young men wearing one of these leather jackets was co-captain Donnie McGugan, a fierce-hitting defensive back who was a motivational leader on the field. Overjoyed by the success of his football team and the championship that he was so instrumental in helping to win, he was preparing himself to return and help defend it the following year. Shown here in the post-game celebration, dumping cold ice water on Coach Cercelli and rejoicing with his teammates, no one could have imagined that next summer, weeks before the 1988 season was to begin, he would be accidentally electrocuted in a tragic accident, cutting short a promising young life. The death of such a close friend and teammate had a devastating effect on the 1988 team, but the memory of his spirit spurred on the team. Donnie's number 77 was worn on the sleeve by every player as the season was dedicated to him and his family. The 1988 team returned a number of veteran stalwarts. Papp, Dickey, and Gleason all returned, along with John Pacheco and the Gosling twins. Pat Thompson, a first-year quarterback, became the signal caller. Despite losing 2 games during the regular season, the team rolled through the competition in the playoffs, setting up a final against the Saunders Sabres, a team who had previously defeated the Crusaders in the regular season. In what was described as a perfect first half of football, Catholic Central stormed out to a 30-0 first half lead, finally winning the championship 30-15. Steve Papp was awarded the game MVP honors in a brilliant 2-way performance. As the trophy was awarded to the victorious Crusaders and the players held it aloft, running back Matt Dickey desperately grasped the trophy, taping to it the towel he wore in the game. Scrawled across the towel as it hung to the trophy, it read, "For you, 77. And as you looked around to the CCH players on the field, several had written on their taped wrists and shoes little messages, or simply the number 77. His jersey now hangs in the school trophy case, retired from the team roster, as a reminder to all players the fragility of life. Despite the joyous celebration, the memory of Donnie was in the back of the minds of every player and coach on the team. At the season-ending team banquet, the players established the Donnie McGugan Award, a bursary scholarship awarded every year to a graduating player. The team also presented Donnie's mother with a championship game ball, and in return she thanked the team for its support and fond memories.
I'm very moved in receiving this call in memory of my son Donnie. My family and I will always cherish it. Donnie this summer could hardly wait to go back to school to play another season of football. He told me of the guys that would be coming back, and he said that he would all have another good team. He didn't make it because the Lord had other plans for him. But he was right. You did have a good, strong team, and you showed it by winning the championship again this year. I want to thank you on behalf of my family and myself for dedicating this season to him. And as a small memento, I would like to give each of you a picture that appears in one of the press. Thank you.
In 1989, Catholic Central finally had its own home field, dedicated and named Kennedy Field in honor of Fred Kennedy. After 39 years, a Catholic Central football team could finally play a home game in its own backyard. A ceremony was held to bless the new field in honor of the Kennedy family.
Well, I think probably I still have some cinders in my knees and elbows from the original field that was out there when I first started. It was improved after that, and they did put as I remember, an in-ground water sprinkler system and which never worked, and some grass on there, but it was just a practice field. We used to play most of our games. I played at Labatt Park and at Gibbons Park, and we played some of our games at Carruthers Field. So home games were always get on the bus and leave, but practicing was okay out there. We could all put up with it. There was a couple soccer teams and a couple football teams out there, so it was busy, but that was fine.
For years, the Crusaders traveled all over the city in search of a field. Throughout those years, the lack of facilities never dampened the spirit or execution of the football team, but rather helped to make it stronger and make each team a more cohesive unit.
Blessed are you, Lord God of all creation. Look upon us as we gather here today. Bless this playing field, this field of our dreams, with its many echoes of voices from the past. Let it become for us a locus for the ennobling of the human spirit. Let it be a place where we may indulge in fair play and cultivate an appreciation for the talents and abilities of others. Let it be a learning ground for tolerance, justice, and respect. Let it allow us to rejoice in the marvels of the human body. Let it challenge us to put all our human potential to the test. On this playing field, may we learn to win with dignity and to lose with grace. In the context of friendly competition with our brothers and sisters from across the city, let it provide an occasion for us to transcend differences of religion and culture, and so rejoice in our common bond as children of God. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
In 1990, Paul Gleason, a former CCH co-captain and Fred Kennedy Trophy recipient, took over as head coach of the senior team. What followed was 3 consecutive city championships, 3 undefeated seasons, and a string of 31 consecutive victories. During the perfect 9-0 season of 1990, the offense rolled up 352 points, while the defense gave up only 25 points all season. The team saw the emergence of grade 11 quarterback Al Deshawn, who complemented the experienced backfield of Tom Nemeth, Matt Legg, and Chris Regier. Going throughout the whole season, with the closest game being a 24-point differential, Catholic Central ran into a tough foe in the city final against the Montcalm Cougars. A 2-touchdown performance by game MVP Tom Nemeth gave the Crusaders a 14-10 victory as the senior Crusaders debuted in their new white uniforms. The football program had become a year-round commitment, with an off-season weight training program and spring football camps and clinics, as the caliber of football in the city of London was improving dramatically. The 1991 season saw perhaps the most powerful offense in the history of the London Conference. The team scored 387 points over 9 games and averaged 52 points a game throughout the playoffs. The defense was not far behind, allowing only 45 points all season. In what could be considered the greatest individual performance by one player in a city final, Jacques Lavalier, who had scored 21 touchdowns during the season, averaged 20 yards per run on a 12-carry, 240-yard performance on his way to scoring 5 touchdowns in the championship game. The team was quarterbacked by Mike Kennedy Jr., the grandson of former head coach Fred Kennedy, whose presence in the stands at CCH game was a regular sight. The final game saw CCH trailing the second quarter 9-7 to the Beale Raiders, when with 6 minutes left in the half, the Crusaders exploded for 32 points on the way to a 59-9 victory. The lightning-fast punt-returning duo of Hen Fawn and Paul Sleegers caused mayhem to opponents all season long. Backs Chris Regier, Ryan Thowell, and Mike Pepe left opposing defenses dumbfounded on how to stop the Crusader attack. Catholic Central's offensive system had taken on the look of another local football power, the University of Western Ontario. Greg Marshall's influence as offensive coordinator helped the Crusader running attack become a well-oiled machine. The Crusader football program had also become a hotbed for the university programs in recruiting talented young players to play at the next level. And looking back over the years, Catholic Central had produced a slew of university players, with the Western Mustang football team benefiting from the countless number of players who moved down Richmond Street and became football stars with the Mustangs. The 1992 season saw the continuation of the impressive team statistics, as the offense scored a total of 385 points during the 9 games, while the defense gave up a total of 6 points during the 4 playoff games that season. Quarterback Al Deshawn, with running backs Jason Van Giel and Jacques Lavalier, made for an unstoppable backfield. The primary receiving target, Ryan Thowell, emerged as the most talented player in the league and signed a full scholarship to the University of Minnesota in the Big Ten Conference. The Crusaders met Montcalm in the city final and put on an offensive and defensive clinic. Deshawn, the game MVP, was brilliant in working the ball around to the offensive weapons he had at his disposal, in defeating the Cougars 33-6. At the conclusion of the season, the Canadian Football Quarterly, a magazine that rates the top high school football teams in Canada, ranked the Catholic Central Crusaders the #1 team in the country, giving CCH the unofficial title as the high school football national champions for 1992. The future of the Crusader football program seemed secure. the strong support of the alumni, the deep respect of the long-held traditions, and the devotion and commitment of the players and coaches to the spirit that the school foundation is built upon.
Through these fields of destruction, baptisms of fire, I've witnessed your suffering as the battle is high, and though the heavens go back in the fear and the loss, you did not desert me, my brothers and I. There's so many different worlds, so many different times, and we have just one, but we live in different worlds. Now the sun's gone to hell, moon riding high. Let me bid you farewell.